The sound arrived before the sight, a low, grinding tremor that vibrated through the parched earth of the Arizona Territory, followed by the dull, terrifying roar of water tearing through dry arroyos miles away in the dark. Suddenly, the abandoned, stranded steamboat known as the Mohave Belle groaned, its weathered timbers shuddering as the massive hull shifted on its desert supports for the first time in 12 years. Clara Bennett stood on the upper deck, clutching her father's heavy brass compass, as 14 terrified souls sheltered inside, praying for a miracle. With a deafening snap, the main stern cable broke, threatening to turn the ship broadside and crush them all in this epic Wild West survival story. To understand how a young woman brought this ship back to life, and why she was now fighting to save everyone aboard, we must go back 4 months to where it all began. To understand how a young pioneer woman found her purpose in the harsh American West in the 1880s, we must return to where her resilience was forged. Clara May Bennett's early years near St. Joseph, Missouri, smelled of river mud, soft coal, and warm iron. Her father, Amos Bennett, spent his life elbows deep in grease aboard shallow-draft riverboats, teaching his daughter the precise rhythm of pistons, the language of boiler pressures, and how to read shifting currents. When a sudden boiler failure took his life when she was 12, he left her only a few tools and a heavy, cool brass pocket compass designed to keep a person headed straight even when the river bent. For the next 8 years, Clara worked tirelessly in Hiram Bennett's mercantile store, becoming an unpaid fixture among the inventory shelves. When Edwin, Hiram's eldest son, announced his approaching marriage, the household needed space. Hiram gave Clara $83 and dismissed her. Her uncle's rejection was chillingly administrative, spoken as though he were merely closing an expired ledger. She did not leave after a loud argument. She simply stepped outside and counted the money 3 times in the quiet alcove, her hands trembling slightly. Years of being treated strictly as an expense had left a deep, quiet anxiety in her bones, a persistent fear that she owed a debt to the world just for taking up space. Independence is not always freedom. Sometimes it is the habit of making yourself small enough that nobody can accuse you of needing them. The journey west tested her endurance, shifting from the rattling bench of a railroad car to the suffocating dust of a freight wagon that dragged her across the harsh, ochre expanse of the Arizona Territory. Cottonwood Landing appeared on the horizon like a collection of bleached bones. Milton Graves, the local land agent, explained that the settlement once received heavy freight from shallow-draft steamers until a massive flood altered the river channel and a newer railroad route diverted business elsewhere. Perched on the dry, baking silt of the abandoned river branch sat the Mohave Belle, a full-sized paddle-wheel steamboat stranded like a massive leviathan. Its white paint had peeled away to reveal gray, sun-cracked timber, and its twin smokestacks rose silently against the indifferent blue sky. Milton squinted at her across his cluttered desk and named the tax price. $76 takes the hull, the boiler, and all the desert dust inside her. Clara placed the exact bills on his desk without a word, walked out to the sun-baked bank, and ran a calloused hand along the vessel's massive hull. "A house does not need to travel," Clara said. "It only needs to hold." Before trusting her full weight to the ship's gangplank, Clara tested the structural integrity of the approach, prodding the warped timber with the heel of her boot to ensure the deck could bear her load. She selected a small, defensible steward's cabin on the main deck, choosing the smallest space because it required less fuel to warm against the cold desert night, and sat closer to an exterior exit. With her remaining $7, she walked back to the dry goods store and invested strictly in survival necessities: dried beans, coarse cornmeal, salt, cooking fat, lamp oil, wire, and heavy nails. She hauled heavy water barrels from the distant public well to secure her immediate water supply, then blocked the broken window frame with a thick piece of sailcloth lashed tightly with wire against the howling wind. Though a small pot-bellied stove sat invitingly in the corner, she steadfastly refused to light it, knowing better than to test an untested flue without verifying the ventilation. That night, she followed the true order of frontier survival: structural safety first, followed by secure shelter, water access, temperature regulation, and food preservation, leaving fire for last. She slept fully clothed in her garments, with her boots and tool pouch resting directly beside her makeshift pallet. Endurance is not the same thing as judgment. Clara survives her first 24 hours of desert survival and shelter repair because she knows which discomforts are temporary and which risks could kill her before morning. The morning light revealed that Clara was capable, but not infallible. While exploring the vessel's dark interior, she discovered the ship's massive auxiliary freshwater tank housed deep within the lower hold. Eager to secure a stable supply, she spent hours meticulously cleaning out decades of sediment and patching the single visible crack with waterproof pitch. Convinced of her success, she hauled 6 consecutive loads of river water from the town well to fill the reservoir. However, water is an unforgiving test of physics. Unbeknownst to her, a secondary hidden pipe was hemorrhaging moisture directly behind the damp wooden bulkhead. With a sudden, sickening crunch, an aged floorboard gave way beneath the concentrated weight of the heavy water barrel, dropping its corner into the void. Ezra Cole, an elderly local carpenter, arrived just in time and diagnosed the structural failure. He explained that Clara had made several believable mistakes, assuming one visible leak was the only leak, filling the tank before testing it in small stages, concentrating a heavy load on one compromised board, and treating aged wood as though it behaves like metal. Ezra taught her that old wood can retain a deceptive hard exterior while losing its internal strength entirely. Clara accepted Ezra's offer of a solid oak plank to repair the floor, but immediately logged its market value as a debt in her ledger, proving she still struggled to distinguish genuine generosity from a transactional obligation. As she crawled into the dark space behind the broken bulkhead to trace the leaking pipe, her fingers brushed against a hidden framework extension running directly toward the locked captain's cabin. Clara approached the heavy oak door of the captain's cabin, examining the encrusted hardware with a careful eye. Rather than forcing entry, she meticulously cleaned the grime from the screw slots, applied a small amount of oil, used steady pressure with her screwdriver while supporting the lock assembly, and carefully preserved every removed piece. This unopened door became a true test of character, proving the secret was intended for someone patient enough not to destroy the ship to reach it. Once the latch gave way, the door swung inward to reveal a perfectly preserved time capsule. A sturdy oak desk stood beneath a fine layer of dust alongside a neat cot, while open logbooks chronicled Gideon Shaw's final, futile weeks watching the water level drop and the company dissolve. While wiping down the furniture, Clara noticed the desk's false depth, a subtle structural discrepancy. Pressing a hidden release panel, she opened a concealed compartment filled with currency, gold coins, old company notes, navigation plans, a carved cottonwood rabbit, and a sealed envelope. Written across the front in clear, faded ink were the words, "For the person patient enough not to break the door." It was a triumphant moment of riverboat restoration, rooted deeply in patient frontier craftsmanship. Opening the sealed envelope revealed the tragic history of Gideon Shaw, a man who had commanded the Mohave Belle through 10 years of booming river commerce before the unpredictable waters vanished entirely. After the company went bankrupt, Gideon stayed behind with his wife Nora and their young daughter Elsie, waiting in vain for a spring thaw that never arrived. That bitter winter, a relentless fever swept through Cottonwood Landing, taking both Nora and 6-year-old Elsie within a single week. Left with nothing, Gideon spent his remaining years living aboard the silent ship, carving a small wooden rabbit to remember his daughter, and recording his final wish: do not wait for the river to return before making the boat useful. The hidden compartment contained a complex financial reality that prevented easy wealth. Approximately $860 in usable federal notes and gold, roughly $1,200 in failed company drafts, detailed navigation records, maintenance diagrams, and ownership papers that were not legally complete. Clara could easily have hidden the money, as no one else knew it existed. Unexpected money does not reveal character because it makes someone rich. It reveals character because it gives them an opportunity to act without witnesses. Choosing integrity over temptation, Clara carried everything straight to Milton Graves. She asked him to determine whether Gideon had legal heirs, whether the currency belonged to the county, whether the contents transferred with the sale of the ship, and whether she was legally permitted to use them. Milton sealed the assets in a heavy iron box for a 30-day review. Clara walked back through the desert dust to the Mohave Belle with the exact same $7 she had held before opening the cabin, stepping forward into a classic second chance story built on forgotten survival wisdom rather than stolen luck. During the 30-day wait, Clara organized her labor systematically, dividing her daily workload into urgent fixes, tradable services, and postponed long-term projects. Her first major breakthrough came when she repaired a broken iron brake shoe on Miguel Ortega's freight wagon, utilizing her knowledge of metal stress and leverage. Grateful for the timely fix, Miguel paid her not in cash, but in valuable goods and transport: heavy water barrels, mesquite firewood, and a sack of dried beans. Soon, word of her mechanical competence spread through the settlement. Maggie Doyle brought her a jammed, hand-cranked grain mill. After Clara aligned the rusted gears and polished the burrs, Maggie exchanged fresh sourdough bread and rendered fat for the labor. Meanwhile, Ezra Cole visited the Mohave Belle to teach her advanced structural carpentry techniques for reinforcing curved ribs, while Jonah Reed, the local blacksmith, allowed her access to his forge and helped her fabricate a heavy-duty steel hinge. Through these daily transactions, Clara navigated a thriving frontier barter system where payments included water barrels, beans, mesquite firewood, freight transport, bread, metalwork, access to tools, and future labor. She began to understand that true frontier independence does not mean performing every task alone. It means having a skill valuable enough to exchange for the skills one lacks. The American frontier was not sustained by lone heroes, but by people who could repair one another's weaknesses. Grounded in essential frontier survival, practical frontier craftsmanship, and growing community resilience, Clara discovered her place in Cottonwood Landing long before Milton's iron box was ever unlocked. When the 30 days expired, Milton Graves officially confirmed that no legal heir had been found, clearing the way for Clara to utilize the inheritance. Rather than dreaming of a restored voyage, Clara studied the local economy and designed the Mohave House and Repair Yard, transforming the stranded vessel into a boarding house, a repair workshop, a freight stop, a food and water reserve, and a secure weather shelter. Exercising strict financial discipline, she divided the usable money into distinct funds covering structural repairs, weatherproofing, equipment, operating expenses, and an emergency reserve. With calculated restraint, she flatly refused to restart the original main boiler, knowing that the pressure vessel had not been inspected, safety valves might be seized, pipes had thinned, and restarting it created no necessary benefit. A responsible mechanic is measured not only by what she can make run, but by what she has the judgment to leave alone. Cyrus Pike, a vocal local merchant, raised immediate objections to her enterprise, but Clara ignored his doubts, focused entirely on stabilizing the vessel's hull. However, nature reminded her that the desert demands constant vigilance. A newly installed pane of glass cracked sharply overnight, signaling a harsh reality. The ship's heavy frame was slowly twisting because the ground beneath it remained uneven. Investigating the cracked window glass led Clara directly to the source of the structural stress. Ezra Cole arrived to help inspect the base, identifying that the ground had settled unevenly beneath the port side and was slowly twisting the heavy timber frame. Working together through grueling days of frontier engineering and meticulous shelter repair, the crew stabilized the ship by clearing access below the hull, raising only small sections at a time with heavy jacks, installing temporary wooden cribbing, replacing failed support blocks, and rechecking door and window alignment after each adjustment. Throughout the process, Clara masterfully repurposed the ship's original equipment, utilizing the cargo winch for lifting heavy wagon axles, the main water tank for domestic storage, the upper cabins for future guests, the cavernous engine room for heavy repair work, the ship's bell for emergency signals, mooring lines for critical structural bracing, and ventilation shafts for heat and smoke control. Yet the riverboat restoration demanded absolute vigilance, exposing her second major miscalculation. Trying to save resources, she attempted to reuse an old stovepipe section that was far too thin. During an initial test fire, the metal began to warp and distort dangerously. She immediately extinguished the stove and replaced the part, learning a hard lesson. Thrift becomes negligence when it transfers hidden risk to other people. As twilight fell, while clearing out an old shelf in the wheelhouse, Clara found a loose, water-stained page tucked deep inside Gideon's final log. The warning scrawled across it was chillingly specific. Rain in the Black Mountains can flood the old channel, even when Cottonwood Landing remains dry. As the restoration took shape, the lives of the local residents became deeply entwined with the Mohave Belle, revealing the profound community resilience that sustained the settlement. Ezra Cole represented the fading generation who had built the original landing with his own hands, only to watch its commerce fail as the river shifted. While helping Clara organize the wheelhouse, Maggie Doyle spotted Gideon's carved wooden rabbit, held it gently in her calloused hands, and remembered aloud that little Elsie had always carried it by one ear, a simple detail that transformed a tragic name in an old log into a vividly remembered child. Meanwhile, Jonah Reed, the young blacksmith, quietly explained to Clara why he intended to leave Cottonwood Landing, seeing no economic future in a dying desert town, while Miguel Ortega shared vital regional knowledge that mechanical drawings could never provide, warning her about the treacherous behavior of sudden flash floods. Miguel imparted crucial forgotten survival wisdom. A dry riverbed is never automatically safe, because floodwaters can surge down from distant mountain storms hours before local residents ever see a single drop of rain. Embracing this spirit of connection, Clara mounted and hoisted the heavy metal tongue, finally restoring the ship's original brass bell. Its deep, resonant tone rang out across the silent desert flats for the first time in 12 years. As the echoes faded over the abandoned river branch, a heavy passenger wagon appeared at the edge of town, limping forward with a badly damaged rear wheel. The damaged passenger wagon limped into Cottonwood Landing with a severely fractured rear axle assembly, immediately testing the fledgling economic ecosystem of the Mohave Belle. The broken carriage created a sudden, compounding demand for repair work, overnight lodging, food, fresh water, animal care, and replacement parts. Demonstrating seamless community resilience, Clara, Jonah, Ezra, and Miguel immediately divided the labor. Jonah forged a replacement iron brace. Ezra handled the structural wood shaping, Miguel tended to the exhausted draft horses, and Clara coordinated the overall repairs. The stranded travelers secured safe lodging aboard the newly converted Frontier boarding house, enjoying hearty provisions as Maggie Doyle served the very first communal dinner in the ship's restored mess hall. As the evening settled, one weary traveler placed the first official lodging payment directly onto Gideon's old desk. Clara carefully recorded the incoming coin in her ledger, but paused with her pen hovering, feeling the profound weight of her new role, before writing her own name as proprietor. Not everyone welcomed the prosperity. Watching from across the dusty thoroughfare, Cyrus Pike recognized the undeniable competitive threat. His objections were born not of malice, but of fear, anxiety over losing his boarding rooms, genuine worry regarding structural safety, deep resentment that an outsider was swiftly altering the local economy, and a bitter realization that his own establishment had grown complacent. The triumph of survival with limited resources was tempered by an ominous technical evaluation. Later that evening, an experienced traveling surveyor inspected the ship's freshly secured framework and delivered a chilling warning. The current bracing was more than sufficient to withstand fierce desert winds, but it would completely fail if confronted by moving water. Cyrus Pike wasted no time escalating his grievances, submitting a formal safety complaint to the town council regarding the Mohave Belle. Rather than retreating into private resentment or dismissing his challenge, Clara chose a transparent public inspection, inviting the town to scrutinize the vessel from bow to stern. The rigorous inspection checklist immediately brought to light 3 legitimate and dangerous weaknesses. The rear emergency exit was far too narrow for a crowd. The warning bell could not be heard over the noise of the engine room, and the current anchoring system was heavily optimized for wind resistance rather than active floodwater. Rather than defending her pride, Clara immediately accepted the findings and set to work on vital frontier engineering improvements. She and her allies widened the emergency evacuation route, added a secondary bell pull mechanism to the lower deck, buried heavy timber deadman anchors deep into the earth, reinforced the structure by reusing original mooring lines, and established a clearly marked illuminated evacuation route leading directly to higher ground. Criticism does not become false merely because the person offering it dislikes you. True responsibility begins when a person can separate an opponent's motive from the truth inside the objection. Working through these corrections forced Clara to acknowledge that Cyrus's self-interested complaint had likely just saved lives. As the sun sank lower, testing the newly buried anchors in the heavy soil, community resilience was put to a silent test. While driving the final stabilization stake, Miguel paused, wiped the sweat from his brow, and studied a dense wall of dark, bruised clouds gathering ominously over the Black Mountains. Down in Cottonwood Landing, not a single drop of rain fell, and the air remained completely dry. The suffocating heat broke with a low, distant tremor that did not sound like thunder, carrying an urgent weather warning from the northern hills. Checking the distant horizon against Gideon's warning notes, Clara confirmed the looming danger and immediately mobilized the settlement. Aboard the Mohave Belle, discipline took over. They sealed the cargo doors, hoisted heavy supplies upward, redistributed internal water weight to counter the current, thoroughly inspected every anchor, greased the cargo winch, prepared emergency lamps and tools, and restricted access to unsafe zones. Across Cottonwood Landing, community organization followed a swift protocol. The ship's bell rang out its warning. Children and elderly residents were moved to safety. Horses were relocated to high ground. Heavy ropes were uncoiled. Occupied buildings were marked, and dry food stores were raised above ground level. Cyrus Pike initially resisted the panic, arguing against the disruption, but after seeing Clara's absolute composure and remembering the surveyor's warning, he changed course and helped secure the mercantile stores. This critical response was guided by essential desert survival and forgotten survival wisdom. Flash flooding rarely announces itself with local weather. It is driven by distant rainfall, where the decision to prepare relies entirely on the vast imbalance between the small cost of unnecessary preparation and the catastrophic cost of being unprepared. In the midst of these actions, water conservation took a back seat to sheer survival as all extra vessels were filled. As the frantic preparations fell silent, a narrow, dark ribbon of water suddenly appeared in the middle of the dry river channel. It vanished briefly behind a jagged rise of silt, only to return an instant later as a roaring, towering wall of thick, muddy water. The roaring wall of brown water struck the stranded hull with a deafening impact, instantly transforming the dry desert floor into a turbulent, churning wash. Within minutes, the relentless floodwaters eroded the soft silt beneath the vessel, causing the heavy timber supports to wash away and the stern to lift abruptly on the swelling tide. 14 vulnerable people sought refuge aboard the deck, turning the boarding house into an isolated island. Clara immediately assigned clear responsibilities, drawing on the strengths of everyone present. Ezra watched the structural braces, Jonah operated the winch, Miguel managed the forward line, Maggie organized the sheltered residents, Dr. Webb handled injuries, Milton managed lamps and signals, and Cyrus bravely helped bring 2 trapped residents from the low ground. The situation turned critical when the heavy stern cable snapped under the immense pressure, threatening to spin the boat broadside. The greatest danger was not simply that the ship would move, but that it would turn sideways, exposing its full flank to the raging water and tearing the wooden hull apart. Clara knew she could not pull it directly back against the full fury of the current. Instead, using masterful frontier engineering, she devised a controlled plan. The forward anchor became the pivot. A double pulley reduced the load on the winch. A critical line was redirected through a sturdy cottonwood tree on the bank. Internal weight was shifted forward, and the bow gradually turned directly into the oncoming current. When darkness fell and all familiar landmarks disappeared beneath the swirling flood, Clara relied on her father's heavy brass compass to locate and secure the vital northeast anchor line in the blinding storm, finally transforming the sentimental keepsake into an indispensable tool for survival. Moments later, under immense strain, the winch jammed and the cable slipped dangerously from its groove. When Jonah panicked and wanted to apply brute force, Clara stopped him instantly, knowing that survival with limited resources requires restraint rather than muscle. She partially released the load, realigned the cable, checked the ratchet mechanism, and resumed the pull gradually. Through incredible community resilience and a gripping Wild West survival story, the Mohave Belle swung smoothly and safely into the current. Clara did not save them because she knew everything. She saved them because she knew who should do each job, when to accept another person's judgment, and when the final decision had to be hers. When the roaring floodwaters finally receded, the morning light revealed a sobering damage assessment across Cottonwood Landing. The Mohave Belle had shifted approximately 20 yards from her original resting place, lost several vital supports, and sustained minor structural damage, yet she had successfully preserved her secure cabins and vital supplies, while keeping all 14 sheltered people entirely safe. Standing on the damp deck surveying the mud, Cyrus Pike met Clara's eyes and openly acknowledged how crucial her rigorous safety inspection and stubborn preparations had been. The town did not become prosperous overnight, but concrete economic effects quickly took root. A regional freight route officially adopted Cottonwood Landing as a permanent stop. Jonah decided to remain and expand his metalworking business. Maggie took charge of the communal kitchen. Ezra began training young apprentices in structural carpentry, and Cyrus focused his efforts on horses, freight, and travelers seeking his saloon. Additionally, 2 abandoned homes were repaired, and a traveling schoolteacher began considering remaining in the town permanently. New working agreements formed organically among the local businesses, driven by deep community resilience and practical frontier craftsmanship. Amidst the quiet rebuilding, Clara opened her ledger to the page where she had recorded Ezra's first oak plank as a formal debt. With a steady hand, she crossed it out entirely without entering any requirement for repayment. It was a quiet but profound transformation. She finally accepted that genuine care and kindness are not always transactions. 2 years later, Cottonwood Landing stood transformed, a testament to enduring community resilience and a true second-chance story for every resident who had once considered leaving. The Mohave Belle now thrived as a bustling frontier boarding house and a fully operational repair yard, anchoring a thriving local economy. Inside Gideon's old cabin desk rested 4 quiet artifacts: Amos Bennett's brass compass, Elsie Shaw's carved wooden rabbit, Gideon's weathered journal, and Clara's business ledger, representing direction, memory, knowledge, and sustainability. Clara never returned to Missouri to show Hiram what she had built. She realized she did not need his regret or approval to validate her life as a capable pioneer woman. Her ultimate freedom was found in the simple truth that his harsh judgment was no longer part of her choices or her thoughts. Reflecting on the journey, Clara understood she had not restored the Mohave Belle to its original, fading purpose. She had achieved something far more difficult. She accepted that its first life was entirely over and bravely granted it a vital, enduring second one. The old river never returned to Cottonwood Landing, but after that unforgettable year, nobody in the town ever waited for it again.